For a long time, I keep saying trade with Africa, but I'm realizing that I came in with an assumption that everybody understands what I'm talking about, or most people understand what it takes. And I feel like, it's an humbling process to realize, oh, okay, wait a minute, I really need to go deep dive, share more content, share more technical understanding so that people really understand what it is that we're talking about here. So, because for me, I think I operate behind closed doors, and I just assume that, because I come from that world of trade at scale and transactions and all of that, but I'm finding that I really have to break the information down and share it in simple ways. Okay. So now, what usually happens, when you look at the World Trade Organizations and the rules of trade, cross-border transactions, is that most nations and most territories try to protect their market, right? And they try to protect the internal trade activities happening, the manufacturing, the transactions, the sales, the retail happening within their market. But at the same time, they want to export, right? They want to export to a new territory, and they know if they want to export, they also have to somehow open up their own market, to other foreigners. It's like a bilateral. That's where bilateral trade comes in, because if you close your market to, say, from US closes to Canada, then Canada would say, you know what, then you can come in as well. So usually they come up with bilateral trade agreements to say, okay, these are the conditions that would allow you to bring in your goods and services, right? And then the other party would say, these are the conditions where your goods and services can be brought into our territories as well. So that's great for the political policy makers, right? They go behind the scene, they do the work, they write the policy sits on paper. What we now see, and the challenge, is being able to take that policy, for business people to take that policy and be able to translate it into business terms and be able to execute and trade with those terms. That is one of the things that we're seeing, that not enough businesses and business leaders and individuals are taking advantage of trade agreements and trade policies that are already on paper. That is something, especially when it comes to Africa, is that there are trade agreements, trade policies that have been in existence on paper, but we are now finding out that it's not being used because the business community, the diaspora, the individuals, the business people that should be reading the fine print and executing on the fine print and connecting and trading and benefiting from those, should I say, letter of the law, the instruments of trade, they are not benefiting. So why is that? Why are you not benefiting from trade? Why are you not trading with Africa? Why are you not participating in the global market, right? Or even the regional market. So I'll also talk about tariff and non-tariff barriers, even in the context of the Continental Free Trade Agreement and even AGOA as well. So yes, I'm telling you, you can't make these things up. These are the real stuff that we all need to start talking about. We all need to start explaining and engaging and understanding, because those things, they might be on paper. The government may have done what they can do, but it's going to take people like you and I to make it happen. And that's why we exist at Nazaru. That's why we exist, in order to make it clear what the opportunities are, help you take advantage of the opportunities, and prepare your services or products to help you penetrate existing markets for your future, right? And these are things that I would say a lot of us, I don't know if you fall into that category, but for a lot of us, we are the first generation to try and crack this. We are the first generation. For many other communities around the world, their parents, their grandparents already started engaging in international trade, and they basically just handed down those initiatives, those businesses to their parents, and then the parents hand it down to their kids, and you just see, manufacturing, transactions, things that are the skill sets and the knowledge is embedded in those families. So that's what I'm telling you is be open, explore this space when you even think about business opportunities. So we talked about market access, we talked about how they build, bilateral trade, why it's so important. Now, let me talk about tariff. So tariffs are one way of, raising trade barriers to say, even if you want to come into our market, we're going to give you an order that you have to come over, because again, we're trying to protect our markets, the transactions happening, the manufacturers within our market. So for example, US, we have manufacturers here that are already distributing in market. If you're coming from China or Africa or Europe and you want to come into our market because of our size, we're going to raise tariffs against your goods and services 5%, 10%, 15%. We're going to raise that when you come into our market, because we don't want it to be just easy breezy for you to come and compete with those living in that market. Okay, so tariff is a barrier, but usually, so when you think about the China trade war, right, one of the things that is going on is the tariff, right? I'm going to apply X tariff to steel. I'm going to apply that tariff. It's usually raising barriers. Like, tariff is a way of raising barriers. But the important thing is, as a business person, we informing you about the tariff doesn't mean you shouldn't still enter that market. What we have to do is do the calculation to say how big, what is the size of that market you're trying to go into? What is the strategy that we will build for you over the next couple of years, say 5 years, that will allow you, to understand the market and to gain access into the market? And the tariff itself is just I wouldn't say it's a facade, it's an hurdle, but overall, the reward of that risk is higher than the risk itself. Right? So for example, if you're coming into the US market and you do your 5-year plan and you realize that you're still going to make more money, then you'd be like, charge me 5%, 10%, 50%, it doesn't matter. I'm targeting that market. My customers are there, my consumers are there. That is the market I have to penetrate. So there are some numbers and calculations you have to do for you to even say yay or nay. This is a market that is worth penetrating. You have to think about the size of the market, the item, who needs it, what's the size of the consumer base as well. So there are some calculations that we have to do for you to be able to say, yes, that's a market you want to go to. So for example, Nigeria, Ghana, Egypt, right? If you're looking at those markets, there's some calculations we have to do. That is not just generic. It has to be by your product or by your service, understanding what's going on ground. So that tariff barrier is just the payments you make in order to clear customs, to come in to sell goods in a new territory. Well, if that was the only barrier you needed to cross, then things would be easy. That's where you come into non-tariff barriers.